Thank you. Well, before you start with the question, maybe I would like to introduce myself. My name is Franz Frederick, and I'm from Austria. And I flew into space in the year 1991. October 1991, 26 years ago.
October, that's a very good month to fly in space.
Yes, it is. Yes.
I'm Bill MacArthur. I'm an American astronaut. I'm very fortunate to have had the opportunity to fly on the space shuttle 3 times. The first time in 1993. And 12 years ago, I was right at the beginning of a 6-month mission on board the International Space Station.
Good.
Hi, my name is Giacomo. First, we would like to know, how do you prepare to go to space? Is there something special?
Yes. You start preparing going into space when you go to school already, because you learn a lot in school, and this is very important. To learn a lot, to develop interest in many things, and when you are lucky and you really want to become an astronaut, you will get maybe the opportunity, and then you have to go through a long selection process, and when you are selected, then the real training starts. And the real training is many things where you have to learn a lot, where you have to stay physically fit, in good condition, sports, many things. Then you have to learn the experiments, the scientific experiments. So you're always learning. Learning never stops. Don't think when you finish school, it's over. Learning is all the time.
Thank you.
Hello, what do you eat in space for breakfast, lunch and dinner?
What do we eat in space for breakfast, lunch, and dinner? Many of the same things that you eat here. They're just prepared a little differently. And so here on Earth, I like to have eggs for breakfast and maybe sausage. Or maybe I would like to have oatmeal for breakfast. And I can have all of those things in space. But what we cannot do in space is cook food. So the food must already be cooked. And then it is prepared so that it won't spoil in space. And so for eggs for example, they are dried and frozen and they become like a powder.
Eggs, c'est quoi? Eggs. Qui peut l'aider? C'est eux. D'accord.
And so then we add hot water to them, and then they become eggs once again, and taste very much the same as they do here in Toulouse. Gosh, one of my favorite meals in space are shrimp, prawns, with a cocktail sauce, horseradish, and it's and again, it's dry in space. And if you take the shrimp out, it's like a piece of styrofoam.
His favorite meal, shrimps are crevettes.
But then when you add water, it's just like a shrimp here in Toulouse.
Hello. How long does it take to reach the ISS?
Oh, how long does it take to reach the ISS? It depends. It takes only 8.5 minutes to reach space. But you're in your small Soyuz spaceship, and then here's the space station. And so you have to catch up with it. And when I flew to space station, it took us 2 days. And that was because we needed to adjust our speed and adjust our altitude. And they worried that we would be very tired if we tried to get to space station earlier. Today, it takes 6 hours.
Combien de temps ça leur met pour y aller au jour d'aujourd'hui, pour aller dans l'espace? Vous avez compris?
2 jours, je crois.
Alors, son expérience à lui, elle était de 2 jours. Et maintenant, en temps normal, il a dit quoi?
6 heures.
6 heures. C'est le plus court hein, quand on fait.
You know, you have to imagine that, let's say this is the Earth, and there's the space station. Flying around the Earth, and it takes 90 minutes to go once around the Earth. Okay? So here's the space station, and here on the Earth is the rocket where Bill is sitting. And the rocket is launching, and then the rocket needs to catch up with the space station. And this took, for him and for me, 2 days, and now they can make it in 6 hours. And this is, again, 1.5 hours around the Earth, very fast, 28,000 kilometers per hour, or 7 kilometers per second. Can you imagine? 7 kilometers per second? Who knows how fast an aeroplane is flying? Anyone?
Qui sait que la vitesse maximum d'un avion?
60 minutes, 2000 km.
More than that. 2,000, she said, kilometers per hour. More than that.
What, an airplane?
Yeah.
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 But passenger is about 1,000 kilometers per hour, so it's 28 times faster. How about the Formula 1 car? How fast? Who knows?
La voiture la plus rapide.
Pour la
About?
direct, ça va à 130
Combien?
km/h. 300, 350.
Vous demandez pour la Formule 1.
350.
Yeah, yeah. So let's say 280 kilometers per hour, so it's 100 times faster.
Vous avez compris, hein, il va 100 fois plus vite qu'une voiture et 28 fois plus vite qu'un avion de transport de passagers.
How long do you stay when you have a mission?
How long do you stay when you have a mission? It depends. You know, in former days, like when I was flying, our mission was 8 days. And when Bill was flying space shuttles, the missions were also 1 week, 2 weeks. But now, when the astronauts fly to the International Space Station, like Bill was doing, his last mission was 6 months, about.
Do you sometimes go out of your shuttle?
And I was lucky. I had the opportunity 4 times to go outside either the space shuttle or the space station. It's called a spacewalk. We wear a very heavy suit. It weighs about here on Earth it would weigh about 100 kilo. But in space, because we float, it's really cool to go outside, and you know you're not inside your safe spaceship anymore. You're like your own little spaceship outside. But it's very hard work. The suit is stiff. It's difficult to move. And a spacewalk is normally 6 to 7 hours. And it's very, very hard work.
Ce qu'on appelle les activités extravéhiculaires en français. The EVA activity. Extravéhiculaire activity.
What sport do you practice in the ISS?
Well, you know, when you are in space, you are living under weightlessness condition. It means you are floating. There's no gravity. So you are not walking because gravity is compensated by this fast flying around the Earth. So you're floating. And when you float, you don't need much force to move. When you want to move, you just push yourself like this and you're floating to the other side. So there's no need for muscles in your legs or in your arms. But you want to come back to earth one day, and here you have to walk, you know, this is very hard work here, so you have to exercise a lot. Every day, 2 hours minimum. You have to run on a treadmill. But again, you're floating, so when you are on a treadmill and you push yourself away, you will fly to the ceiling. So you have a special device which pulls you down to the treadmill. Or you have a bicycle. Or you have all kinds of you know, devices for muscle training. Ask Bill, he spent 6 months up there, every day.
An hour, hour and a half in the morning, an hour or an hour and a half in the afternoon. We had a machine which allowed us to lift weights. There were no weights, so it used springs, and we would push against the springs, and it would be like being in a gymnasium lifting heavy weights.
Springs, c'est des ressorts.
Weightlift, c'est les haltères. Alors, vous savez, c'est comme quand on fait des haltères. Et du temps de Bill, à bord de la Space Station, il y avait un instrument qui s'appelait le E-Red, qui a été maintenant devenu le A-Red. Et c'était avec des sangles et des élastiques qui étaient. Et il faisait l'équivalent de son poids. How much the maximum that you can. I think is
When I was there, about 140 kilos.
Voilà, entre 140 kilos. Donc vous voyez, ça vous permettait de faire des efforts comme ça et de vous muscler les jambes dont on a besoin pour revenir sur Terre après. In fact, the main reason is to prepare your return to Earth, because if you spend of your life in the station, you don't need anymore for your muscle, even your bone, your squelette, votre squelette, vous n'avez plus besoin. Et vous perdez de l'os et des muscles. They call in English the bone loss and the muscle loss. And to stop that and to control that, they are doing a lot of exercise on board. Ils font beaucoup d'exercices à bord, et en particulier jusqu'à 1h30 le matin, 1h30 le soir. Vous voyez, ils passent beaucoup de temps pour maintenir leur forme physique, pour être capables de revenir sur Terre. C'est ça la vraie raison. C'est pour que quand ils reviennent, ils ne soient pas tout mous et ils soient incapables de se porter, qu'ils puissent tenir debout. Et une grande différence entre un vol long, comme le vol de Bill, et un vol court, c'est qu'après le vol, ils sont beaucoup plus affectés. I try to explain the difference between short flight and long flight. After long flight, when the astronaut is back, is a little bit much more affected than after.
But you heard that muscle training is very important against bone loss. And this is important for everyone here, especially for your grandparents. So tell your grandmother and your grandfather to go to the fitness club and make muscle training that works against bone loss. Ask him, he's a doctor.
No, I can explain something very concrete. Après les vols, on mesure leur densité osseuse. The bone density is measured after the long flight, and on voit qu'il y a une perte d'os au niveau du bassin et du bas de la colonne vertébrale. Et après, on regarde the recovery, la récupération de cette. Et les astronautes qui font beaucoup de sports à impact comme ça, des sports de footing, jogging, etc., récupèrent plus vite que ceux qui font du swimming ou du golf. Mais, parce qu'on sait que les sports à impact accélèrent la reconstruction osseuse, ce qu'on appelle en médecine le remodelage osseux. Et quand il vous dit que les grands-parents, le grandfather gagneraient en ostéoporose, seraient moins touchés par l'ostéoporose s'ils avaient une activité physique à impact, marcher, courir, etc., c'est vrai, c'est une réalité. À l'heure actuelle, les rhumatologues disent aux personnes âgées, essayez de marcher le plus possible. Et on dit au minimum 35 minutes par jour. Voilà. So I explain
I understand, I understand.
What skills are required to become an astronaut?
You want to start, Bill?
Certainly. So the first thing that is required to be an astronaut is a good education. And that is learning as much as you can in school. Do you need to be the best student in school? No. But you need to always be learning more and more, and you need to listen to your teachers, and you need to participate in class and pay attention. And you should be active in sport. Do you need to be an Olympic athlete? No, but you should be physically active. And then, once you leave a school, you need to go to university. And then it takes a lot of luck. This year, NASA selected 12 new astronauts. 18,000 people asked NASA if they could be an astronaut. And out of 18,000, only 12 were selected.
C'est combien 18,000? 18 000. Et ils en ont pris combien? Sur les 18 000 candidats, ils en ont pris combien?
Vous l'avez dit, 12, 12. Vous voyez, quand vous faites le rapport 12 divisé par 18 000, la probabilité de succès est très faible. Et c'est pour ça que Bill vous dit you need to be a little bit lucky. Il faut avoir un peu de chance. Et c'est vrai.
Good. Next question. Go ahead.
What's your favorite meal out there? What is the less good food in space?
Oh. I would say I liked all the food because, at least with me, and I believe with many, when you work hard, you get hungry. And then you like to eat, so every food tastes good. And basically the food is quite good, which we get up there. I don't remember having anything bad. And what we did is, since I'm from Austria and I was flying on a Russian space station, we were taking a special prepared meal, an Austrian food, Austrian meal for...
What was your special Austrian food?
Well, there was some Austrian ham, there was chocolate, you know, this Mozart chocolate, and you know, some other stuff. And of course I left this all for my Russian colleagues.
Schnitzel und Wiener Art?
No, no Schnitzel und Wiener Art. But food is not bad there.
Normally, to answer to your question, normally before flight they select the food. They propose a list of food, and if you don't like this food, you don't choose the food, and it will be not in your package, food package on board. So there is before flight a selection of your food by yourself.
But you have to consider up there, you are not eating your food from the plate, because everything is floating. So if you put foie gras on the plate, it will start floating away. Or if you want to drink water, you cannot drink from a cup, because the water will start floating away. So everything is somehow enclosed in a tin or in plastic bags or whatever. So nothing is free floating, you know.
Un tin, c'est des conserves.
Conserve.
During the mission, is there a leader during the mission?
Is there what during the mission?
A leader.
A leader.
A leader.
During the mission. What a good question.
Yeah.
Every mission has a commander. Every spacecraft has a commander. It is it's like the captain of an airplane or the captain of a ship, because sometimes a decision must be made quickly and perhaps you cannot have a discussion. And so on my last mission, my Russian crewmate, Valery Ivanich Tokarev, was the Soyuz commander. So he was the commander of the spaceship that took us to the space station and brought us back. And I was the commander on board the space station. And so on board the space station, if a decision needed to be made, Valery and I would discuss it, and then and normally I would make a decision that was what he recommended. And then in the Soyuz, because everything happened so quickly, we did exactly what Valery, the commander, told us to do.
Do you get tired in the shuttle?
Did you get?
Tired.
Do you get
Scared.
scared?
Scared.
Scared. Scared. Do I get scared? Scared.
Yes. You're frightened sometimes.
Yeah.
Do you get
Yeah,
scared?
yeah.
Okay, well let me tell you. You want to add some question? I think. Okay. I was having the unique, let's say, experience that I became father the very day of my launch. When I was launching into space, my daughter was born. She was coming too early, but I knew that I will become father. So about 4 days before the launch of the rocket, I had a moment where I was scared. You know, I thought, oh my God, when something happens during launch and the rocket explodes, I might not see my daughter. So that was a moment when I was scared. After that, there was no, I had no scare. I was, when you are in the rocket and you're launching, you're very focused. In space, when you have maneuvers to do or during re-entry and landing, you're very focused, but you're not scared. You're positively excited. That's it.
I agree with Franz. Normally, when something unusual happens, you become excited, but from the point that you must take some action. I remember one day I was talking to my wife while I was on space. Yes, I could call my wife or my daughters on the telephone every day from the space station. And a siren began to sound. And so I told my wife, oh, we have an alarm. Let me go check it out. I will call you back. And so I went to the computer and I looked, and it said a poisonous gas was coming into the space station. And I knew there was a way that one of the systems could break and it would put gas into the air, it's called ammonia, that if you breathe it, it will kill you. And so I did find that very exciting, but I don't remember being scared. What I remember was I knew exactly what my action should be, and so I performed those actions. Now it turned out the alarm, the siren, was not true. It was a mistake in the system. I'm very glad. But I shut down all of the air systems, the systems that move air around the space station. I shut all them off. I put an oxygen mask on. I closed all the hatches going from the American part of the space station back to the Russian part of the space station. What I could not hear at the time was the ground, because of the siren. I could not hear the ground saying, stop, it's okay. But Larry did hear them say, "Stop, it's okay." When I got to where he was, he looked at me like, "You did a lot of work that was not necessary."
Ce qui est décrit, c'est un petit peu comme un exercice de PPMS en fait. D'accord, c'est-à-dire qu'ils ont des alertes jusqu'à temps de savoir qu'elle est bonne ou pas. Il a appliqué la procédure pour se mettre en sécurité.
Il y a une alarme de fuite d'ammoniac, NH3. Donc c'est très toxique, hein. Si vous l'inhalez, vous pouvez en mourir, hein, parce que ça provoque une destruction des alvéoles pulmonaires. Et donc il a suivi la procédure, la sirène sonnait, il a mis son masque, il a fermé toutes les écoutilles qu'il devait fermer, et il est allé se réfugier dans le segment russe. Et avec le bruit de la sirène, il n'a pas entendu le bord qui lui disait c'est une fausse alarme, le détecteur n'est pas bon, parce que immédiatement le sol vérifie d'où vient l'alarme, etc. Donc lui, il a suivi la procédure jusqu'au bout. Voilà.
Ça a l'air que c'était une erreur. Il n'a su qu'à la fin.
And his job was to follow the procedure until that the alarm is cancelled, hein, jusqu'à ce que l'alarme soit annulée. Voilà. Et ça arrive, hein, souvent. Moi j'ai été du temps de la station Mir, il y a eu un feu à bord, hein, fire on board by the end. It was during a flight of a German cosmonaut. I was on duty in Zug, in the control center. It has been a panic because in fact they had opened a cartridge of oxygen just to test it was still working after the expiration date, and it was working, but it put a fire on board. So it has been a little bit of panic with such a measure to put oxygen mask, to close all the doors and so on. It's terrific, hein, fire on board in a space station is like on a boat. Hein. C'est comme sur un bateau. Hein. Le feu à bord, c'est terrible. C'est terrible. Next question.
What happened when you come back to Earth after a mission?
Well, when you come back to Earth, it's a very, first of all, when you leave the space station and then you re-enter into the atmosphere is a very dynamic, exciting adventure. And it's very heavy, you know, lots of shaking and moving around. And then you fall on the ground, you hang on a parachute. And then, in my case, and I think also in Bill's case, the ground troops, people on the ground were here immediately, and they open the hatch. And then, you know, then they take you out of this capsule, and they put you in a chair. You start breathing fresh air, and at the first moments, first hours, you have difficulty to walk because you're dizzy and your muscles are maybe a little weak, so you are very focused when you're walking. And then, you know, they take you off, they take off the spacesuit, they give you something other to dress, and then, you know, a procedure starts where you have to readapt to the conditions here on the ground.
Comprenez dizzy? Dizzy, what is dizzy?
Flotter.
Ils se sentent instables quand ils
Instable, c'est-à-dire avoir des vertiges, dizziness, c'est des
Dizzy is
vertiges.
when your head is spinning.
Lorsque vous avez la tête vide, vous avez une sensation de vertige. Dizzy. Ça dure un certain temps. After a long flight, the duration can be a little bit longer, but in all landing, dans tous les atterrissages, les astronautes sont tellement bien habitués à vivre en zéro gravity, hein, que quand ils reviennent au sol, ils ont un petit moment de réadaptation. Hein, c'est ça. Alors ça peut prendre quelques heures, ça peut prendre jusqu'à 48 heures.
40?
2 days.
48 heures. Voilà, c'est pour ça que sur le site d'atterrissage. On les assoit rapidement. Very quickly they are seated because they have a feeling that everything is turning. And après, on les amène dans une tente où on leur enlève le suit, le sokol, le scaphandre sokol. On leur resserre un pantalon anti-G, que les Russes appellent le carcasse. Et après, ils arrivent à tenir debout. Mais il faut qu'on les soutienne encore jusqu'à l'hélicoptère. Et après les vols courts, après le vol en hélicoptère, généralement, ils sont autonomes. Ils n'ont plus besoin de... Voilà, ça c'est le vécu que j'ai eu, moi, en tant que médecin, pour les recevoir sur le site d'atterrissage.
Come on.
Are the psychological criteria as important as the physical ones to become an astronaut?
I think so, yes. Because, you know, the human is not only, bones and meat, but the very, very important, if not the more important part of your body is your brain and your mental condition. So let's say the working together of your brain and your mind together with your body, that's you, and so you are important for doing this. You cannot focus on one or the other. That's my belief.
And now with these very long missions in space, being psychologically strong is more important than ever. I mean, when Franz flew, there were, he did get to speak to his wife, but it took very, very special arrangements. As I mentioned, when I was there, I could make a telephone call and talk to my family. And so, as our missions have gotten longer, we have invested in equipment that allows astronauts and cosmonauts to stay close to their families. That's going to be a problem for a mission to Mars, because the time between sending a radio message and someone hearing it will be several minutes. And so you really cannot talk back and forth. And so we're beginning to put more importance on selecting astronauts who have the psychological resilience, the psychological strength to be gone for a long time. Plus, we want astronauts who can be friends for the whole time. And that's so we think the psychological health is very important.
Donc, je vais rajouter un peu de truc parce que it's really very important what Bill told you. At the present time, we are doing a selection, a psycho selection, with a go no go. In fact, we don't give an appreciation of the level, but we say yes, this guy is psychologically fit for to be an astronaut or not. Like for medical evaluation, it's the same philosophy. But it is true that at the present time we are doing a good individual selection. We are, I think you have two examples. We have some person very resilient to the perturbating event around them. Ils sont très résilients à tous les événements qu'il y a autour d'eux. Mais ce qu'on ne sait pas bien faire, et je suis d'accord avec Bill là-dessus, c'est de faire ce qu'on appelle la Dream Team, l'équipe la meilleure. Quels critères il faut prendre psychologiquement sur tel individu, sur tel autre, pour faire une équipe idéale, ce qu'on les Anglais appellent la Dream Team. Et la science, l'état de l'art, la science, donne peu de règles pour ça, très peu de règles. Et c'est pour ça que vous avez à l'heure actuelle des simulations comme la simulation Mars 500, Mars 500 simulation, where they try to evaluate où ils essaient d'évaluer des nouvelles techniques pour faire des équipes très cohérentes. C'est un nouveau domaine qui n'a pas été très étudié, où on manque de règles. Mais sachez que la sélection compte, mais l'équipe aussi, la composition de l'équipe compte. Par exemple, Bill vous a raconté qu'il avait été leader à bord de la station, mais le leader à bord du Soyouz, c'était son compagnon, le russe. Donc vous voyez, les rôles peuvent changer. Après, ils sont entraînés, ils ont été sélectionnés aussi, ils respectent beaucoup les ordres, la discipline, etc. C'est essentiel. Si c'est quelqu'un qui en fait qu'à sa tête, on ne peut pas le prendre dans l'équipe, hein, parce qu'il va disloquer l'équipe. Et puis, donc la notion de Dream Team, c'est très difficile à faire. You understood what I explained about that?
Fine.
Je ne suis pas sûre qu'on a résilience des élèves, mais
La résilience, you understand what does it mean?
l'idée c'est qu'il faut qu'ils soient forts ensemble, qu'ils fassent une équipe et que la discipline, quand on vous demande d'être discipliné, de monter 2 par 2, etc., c'est pas pour vous prendre des bébés, c'est que quand on est discipliné, on peut aller plus loin, on peut faire plus de choses.
Ça va plus
Et
vite.
là, eux, ils sont
Pour monter les
entraînés pour
escaliers,
être
ça va
dans des
plus vite.
conditions où il faut qu'ils fassent les choses pour que tout roule.
Ah, donc c'est important, hein, les critères psycho à la sélection, c'est important, mais on dit oui ou non. Voilà, c'est un go, no go. Hein.
Okay. You have a question? Okay.
Can you phone your family? Are you homesick?
Do you get homesick?
Homesick. Do you
Homesick.
get homesick?
Well, I was only flying for 8 days and I was not homesick. Not at all. But how about you for 6 months?
So, I would say no, not homesick. There were too many exciting things to do, but I did miss my family. I had 2 daughters. They had both graduated university, and so they were a good bit older than you. But I could talk to them via telephone, on a telephone, every day. My daughters said I talked to them too much. And every Sunday, we would have a video conference. And during special holidays, Christmas, New Year's, I could do video conferences with my father, with my wife's family. And so, bless you. And so and so that helped me to not feel homesick. Now, at the end of 6 months, I was ready to go home, but I was, it was just time.
How do you feel after announcing in space?
After what?
Announcing.
Announcing in space.
What does it mean? No, nothing.
What is nothing?
When you go out of the shuttle.
Oh.
That's beautiful. It's so exciting. So you've got this big spacesuit on, and on the ground, the spacesuit is massive. It weighs 100 kilos. You cannot walk in this spacesuit on the ground. But in space, you just float. And so you're now inside the spacesuit, and it's like wearing, I think I saw in your video where some of you tried to hold a pen wearing boxing gloves, and it's like wearing these boxing gloves, and you're in a big heavy coat, and you've got something covering your face, and you've got big boots, big shoes on, and now you're trying to do some work that requires you to have some skills with your hands. But it's another exciting part of being an astronaut. And then when we opened the hatch or the door to go out, it was pointing down toward the Earth. And so you look out and you see the Earth 400 kilometers below, and it's going by so, it looks like it's going by about this fast. And so you just sort of dive through, where you grab the handle and sort of do a gymnastics somersault, and you go out, and of course you're holding on very tight because you don't want to float away. But we have a special belt that we use to hold us close, and it's a very, very exciting time in space. Now, one other thing I do want to mention. Valeria and I did two. We went outside 2 times. There was no one inside space station while we were outside. No one. What if we had made a mistake and locked the door?
Qu'est-ce qu'il a
Normalement, quand ils sortent dans l'espace, il y en a 2 qui sortent pour être toujours ensemble et pouvoir se porter secours. Et il y en a un qui est dedans, qui est auprès de repressuriser rapidement s'il y a un retour rapide dans le SAS, hein, la chambre de pressurisation, ce qu'ils appellent l'airlock. Et dans le cas de Bill, ils n'étaient que 2 à bord. Ils ont fait les EVA, tous les 2 à bord, sans personne à l'intérieur. C'est-à-dire c'était à haut risque. It was a high risk situation anyway. Hein. Donc ils ont pris des risques. Là. They have taken some risk when they came to ask you to do that.
Do you have problem with your heart in space?
You have problems with your heart in space?
With my heart in space? No. No, I never had problems so far with my heart. Physical problems.
And so having heart problems in space would be very dangerous. And so we are careful, and our doctors are very, very careful to examine us carefully, to examine us very closely to ensure that we do not have a heart problem before we go to space.
Pendant la sélection, on fait un examen qu'on fait maintenant à tout le monde, qui s'appelle le calcium scoring. En fait, on regarde, en faisant des additions des images des coronaires, et on regarde le taux de calcium qu'il y a sur les coronaires. Et comme on sait que c'est ça qui crée les infarctus et les maladies de cœur, quand ça dépasse 5-6%, ils ne sont plus aptes au vol. Donc avant vol, on prend des précautions pour pas qu'ils aient de problème au cœur. Ils sont sélectionnés médicalement pour ça. Et on a cette technique qui s'appelle le calcium scoring, qui se fait à Toulouse, partout, hein, où on peut vous dire, ben, vous avez 100% de chance de faire un infarctus dans 6 mois.
So it is important to eat healthy food, healthy French food, and make sports. Then you don't have heart problems. Wi-Fi. You have Wi-Fi in the shuttle.
We did not have Wi-Fi in the shuttle. We had Wi-Fi on the station, but it was just inside the station. We could not connect to the internet on the ground, although we have been trying to start having some slow internet connectivity on board station. But it's something we will not be able to do when we go to the moon or to Mars, and so it's not so important for us.
How many times did you go out in space?
I did not go out. I did not make any EVA.
I did 4. I did 2 during one of my shuttle missions, and then 2 when I was on space station.
It's a special training when you are going out the spacecraft. You have to be trained in a special pool that is called the neutral buoyancy facility.
buoyancy lab.
Go ahead.
What is the temperature out in space?
What is the temperature out in space? That's a good question.
It's a difficult question.
It's a very difficult question. But let's put it that way. very outside in space is vacuum, and vacuum means there is nothing, so there's also no temperature. But if you look at the space station, you have the sun shining on the space station, so then the outside, the material gets very warm, more than 100 degrees. And on the other side you have the shade, it's very cold, minus 100 something degrees. And then when this changes, the cold side gets into the warm side, will be heated up very fast, and the warm side becomes cool very fast. So the material is very stressed, goes from hot plus 150, 120 degrees down to minus. It's changing very fast. So those are the two temperatures. And when you make an EVA, probably you feel that also.
That's correct. If you touch something that is cold, your fingers will become very cold, and so we have electric heaters in our fingers. Now, if you touch something hot, well, we do not have air conditioning in our fingers, and so you try to be very careful.
Vous avez compris, donc quand ils prennent quelque chose de froid, côté froid, un truc, donc jusqu'à moins 100 degrés Celsius, maintenant dans les gants ils ont mis des chaufferettes, ça s'appelle des heaters, des chaufferettes qui réchauffent les doigts parce qu'ils ne pouvaient pas rester longtemps accrochés. Et par contre, comme il vous l'a dit, il n'y a pas de air conditionné qui permet de rafraîchir les doigts, hein. Ça n'existe pas encore.
Can one become an astronaut with clinical disease?
With chronic diseases,
Is it possible to become an astronaut?
I think that depends on the disease probably.
I think it would.
Diabetes, for example.
And it does. It depends on the disease.
It depends. It depends.
Yeah. I think something, so a chronic disease like diabetes, that I think would be a problem. If someone has a history of kidney stones.
Kidney, c'est les reins.
C'est vrai, des calculs rénaux.
That is a problem.
Yeah, we will not allow them to do a lot, because all our space flights now are very, very long. We don't allow people to become astronauts. But if you're already an astronaut, there are some things that we do allow people to continue to fly in space, some conditions. If you have blood pressure problems that are controlled, you can probably still fly in space, things like that.
C'est intéressant la nuance, c'est-à-dire que si
À la sélection, si vous voulez, c'était très peu toléré. Mais après, quand vous avez été entraîné, que comme une personne il est plus de 55 ans, vous commencez à avoir un peu d'hypertension artérielle, que vous la tolérez bien et tout, on fait des waivers, des dérogations en français, ça veut dire. Et on autorise, on se réunit avec tous les médecins de la station internationale et on décide, ok. Mais à la sélection, on est beaucoup plus sévère parce qu'ils sont plus jeunes, si tu veux, et on ne peut pas embarquer quelqu'un qui est obligé de prendre des traitements plusieurs fois par jour parce que ça va interférer avec son travail dans l'espace. Donc on est beaucoup plus sévère à la sélection que plus tard.
When you were in space, how long does an outing last?
How long does
it last?
I think you said it correctly. Just repeat it, please.
Say it again.
When you are in space, how long does an outing last?
Oh, how long does an outing last?
An EVA, right?
Yes.
Okay.
It's normally between 6 and 7 hours.
Maybe you explain how long it takes to get out.
So on my third spacewalk, because there were only two of us, Mr. Tokarev and I, once we put on our suits, and there was no one to help us, it took us about an hour to put on our spacesuits. We had to breathe oxygen for 4 hours. Then we began to let the air out of the airlock. There was a mistake. One of the valves was closed that should have been open, so we had to come back out. change the valve, go back in. That added an extra hour. They allowed us to work for 5.5 hours. Then we came back in, and when we took off our suits, we had been in the spacesuits for 12 hours.
Je fais le total. Hein. En fait, quand il se prépare à une sortie extravéhiculaire, et là, dans le cas de Bill, c'était un peu plus compliqué puisqu'il n'y avait personne dans la station. Donc à un moment, ils se sont rendus compte qu'il y avait une valve qui était en mauvaise position. Allez, hop, on est obligé de tout recommencer. Parce que, en fait, ils font ce qu'on appelle le pre-briefing. Les plongeurs, tu sais, pour ne pas avoir la maladie des caissons, ce que les Anglais appellent le decompression sickness, ils ont à respirer de l'oxygène pur pour enlever tout l'azote. Tu sais que dans l'air, il y a beaucoup d'azote, il y a 80% d'azote, et cet azote se dissout dans le sang. Et pour être sûr qu'il ne reste plus d'azote dans le sang, ils respirent pendant 4 heures de l'oxygène pur. C'est ce qu'on appelle un wash-out, c'est-à-dire ils rincent leur corps de l'azote. Après, la pression va baisser dans leur scaphandre. Par exemple, le scaphandre américain est à 296 hectopascales, c'est-à-dire 0,3 l'atmosphère qu'il y a ici. Et il risquerait d'avoir des bulles d'azote qui se bloquent dans le sang et faire des accidents, etc. Donc pour éviter ça, on leur fait faire du pre-briefing. Alors, à l'heure actuelle, please Bill correct me, but I think now there is a process before the light exercise.
Right.
Ils peuvent réduire de 4 heures à 2 hours, I think, or something like that, d'exercice, mais ils doivent faire un peu d'exercice pour accélérer le wash-out, to accelerate the wash-out of the nitrogen in the blood. Tu comprends? C'est comme les plongeurs, tu sais, les plongeurs, quand ils reviennent de profond, hein, ils ont à faire des paliers où ils doivent rester un certain temps pour permettre à leur azote dissous de pouvoir et pas faire bloquer des bulles dans le cerveau qui peuvent leur créer une paralysie, des troubles de. Il y a beaucoup d'accidents de decompression sickness, hein, ça existe. Hein. Donc c'est pour éviter ça. Donc c'est un peu compliqué, hein, mais ça prend du temps.
What do you prefer in your job?
What do I prefer in my job as an astronaut? What do I like as an astronaut? Oh, being an astronaut has so many exciting things. First of all, just the flight, you know, sitting on the rocket, and then when you take off and you are accelerated, and then you are circling the Earth, you enjoy zero gravity, you're floating. This is such a cool feeling. When you look out of the window and you see the blue planet, it's fascinating. When you look out into space, into the black, real black space, it's fascinating. So this is already, you know, very rewarding. And then also for me as a scientist, it's interesting to work on the experiments. And while I'm an engineer, an electronic engineer as background, I like to work on medical experiments, on physical experiments, on any kind of scientific experiments, because I'm very interested in them. So it's very, very many things which I really do like in the job of an astronaut.
And you, Bill?
So just very simply, what I liked best was everything about being in space. Being in space is good. I think maybe second to that is coming and talking to future astronauts like you. Gosh, someday people are going to fly to Mars. And that might happen, we hope it will happen in about 20 years. That means someone your age may very well be the first person on Mars. One of you could be on the first crew that goes to Mars. I think that's, I know I would love to go to Mars. I'm too old to go to Mars right now. And so in 20 years, I know I'm too old to go to Mars. And so I really hope that one of the first people to go to Mars will be a student such as yourselves that I got to meet one day.
What is the most difficult, to leave or to come back to Earth?
The most difficult is coming back, because your body very quickly adjusts to not feeling gravity. And when you come back, your arms are heavier. Your feet. On my first space shuttle mission, when we landed, I was supposed to stand up and take some medical measurements. I was supposed to measure my blood pressure. Well, where I stood up, the top of the cabin was under my head, and so I knew I could step just over a little bit and stand up at one of the windows. I thought there was an electrical wire around my feet that I couldn't move them until I looked, and I realized they were just so heavy that it felt like I was tied to the chair. So it's much more uncomfortable. When you first return to Earth, it's much more uncomfortable than when you first get into space.
Well, let me add to this. When you fly into space, you're so excited and you feel so good. And when you come down, you have all the pains he described, but you also feel, well, I'm back. It was nice up there, but now I'm here.
But the good news is when you're back with your family.
Thank you so much for your answer and your visit. We are really happy to meet you.
Thank you.
Well, thank
We are
you.
impressed.
Thank you for letting us join you. And I think we're going to try to do some pictures, but first, are there things in the world about which you are worried? Do you worry about global warming? Do you think about that? Do you worry about that?
Est-ce que vous êtes concerné par le réchauffement climatique?
Est-ce qu'il y a des choses dans le monde qui vous inquiètent, vous préoccupent?
Do you worry about wars in other countries?
Êtes-vous inquiet par des guerres dans d'autres pays?
Do you worry that there are so many people in the world that it will be difficult to feed them all?
Êtes-vous inquiet de voir autant de personnes dans le monde qui souffrent de malnutrition?
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Who caused these problems?
Qui cause ce problème? The men?
We did. No, you didn't. You did not cause these problems.
No.
We did. We are too old to solve these problems. It will be up to young people such as yourselves to make the world better. I'm very excited to have met you today because I now feel better that someday that these problems will be solved because there are just such intelligent, good, that there will be such smart, good adults in about 10 years who will solve the problems we could not.
Très important ce qu'il vient de dire. Qui est-ce qui a compris? Tu étais encore sur... t'écoutais, tu étais concentré. Marie, qu'est-ce qu'il a dit de très important? Question. Il vient de dire que... Oui.
Eux, ils sont
aussi très honorés de vous avoir rencontré.
Oui.
Et pourquoi?
Parce qu'on a posé des questions intéressantes.
Oui, alors vous avez posé des questions intéressantes et c'est révélateur de quoi? Il vous met aussi une responsabilité dans les mains. Laquelle? Qu'est-ce qu'il a dit? Qui c'est les adultes de demain? Nous. Donc c'est à la fois un compliment et à la fois une responsabilité.
Okay, thank you. Now I guess let's come up and take picture.